You're listening to the Morphology Podcast. Thanks for tuning into the Morphology Podcast, aka Murph here to share interviews about biking experiences from cyclists who have pedaled to places all over. Each week, we will get to know new people and explore new destinations to ride your bike. As you listen to these adventures, you may wonder, why haven't I done that yet? A few weeks ago, I was in Colorado as part of the Ride the Rockies crew. Ride the Rockies is a 6-day Colorado bicycle tour that started way back in the mid-'80s. This year, riders tackled 8 mountain passes on their bicycles, almost 30,000 feet of elevation gain, and not 1, but 2 days of over 100 miles of pedaling. I caught up with Jason Carolan from Flexential to get a recap on his week of biking in Colorado. Flexential has been supporting the Ride the Rockies ride for 8 years, and Jason is on to tell us about his company as well as his week on the bike. A quick interruption to tell you this week's podcast is sponsored by Lizard Lips Lip Balm. These great lip balms contain natural ingredients, come in a variety of flavors, and you can choose certified organic or balms with sun protection. Check it out at lizardlips.net. Now back to the show. All right, well, welcome to the show, Jason Carolan. How are you doing, Jason?
I'm great, Murph. Great to be here today. Thank you.
Cool. Well, Jason's on the show to talk about Ride the Rockies, and I was lucky enough to be on the crew this year for Ride the Rockies, and I've met Jason before, and we're both fellow Iowans.
Yes, I was born and grew up in Decorah, up in the northeast corner. So
excellent.
Have a big love for Iowa for sure.
Yeah, so we have that connection. So not only did Jason ride the Rockies this year, his company, Flexential, is also a partner of Ride the Rockies. So I'm glad to have you on, Jason, to talk about both if you are ready.
Let's do it.
Okay. So first off, give the listeners an idea. I know you don't live in Iowa anymore, but tell the listeners where you live now and what the cycling culture is like there.
Well, I live in the beautiful state of Colorado, which is certainly where Ride the Rockies is. And, there's a ton of cycling culture here, all the way back to, the Red Zinger and Coors Classic, time from the professional, racing, certainly Boulder, everybody's familiar with, just the sort of outdoors culture that is there. But I live in Denver and, do a ton of road riding kind of in the area and have a lot of cycling friends out there. I'm probably mostly a road rider. Though I would say gravel is increasingly very popular here. Mm-hmm. Certainly in the city, there's not a lot of gravel choices, but when you get up north and out east, there's a ton of gravel out there as well. And certainly mountain biking, also very popular in Colorado with the trails and the ski areas. My kids can out mountain bike me just about any day, so I don't spend a lot of time on that anymore, but I primarily rode and do some gravel as well.
And I don't know that I've actually ever ridden my bike in Denver, but is it mostly cycling friendly roads or are you on paved paths, or how do you do your cycling when you say road cycling?
Yeah, there's probably a mix. We have some great bike paths. Bicycle Colorado is our big advocacy group here in Colorado, and they spend a lot of time on making sure we have safe paths and safe routes to school and be able to actually bike to work day was just a couple of days ago, so it was great to see a lot of people out for that. But yeah, it's probably mixed. We're lucky we've got some large reservoirs kind of in the metro area, so that's pretty popular for people to ride on those. Not a ton of cars. We've got Lookout Mountain, which is another great ride just outside of Golden. Yeah, so I think we all spend some time trying to learn where the bike friendly streets are,
right.
But for the most part, it's a safe area for sure.
Right. Well, and I can tell you, I've been to Colorado many, many times, but being part of Ride the Rockies was like, if I had to pick one word, I would say breathtaking, because it was just nonstop. Every corner I would go around, I would be like, oh my God, that is so beautiful. And then you go around another corner, you'd be like, what? How could it be more beautiful? So I can't imagine, like you wake up every day and you can see mountains, and it just, I don't know, breathtaking is the best word I can come up with.
Well, it's definitely a little different than seeing cornfields in Iowa, but
Yes.
we finished in Golden this year. So the view of the Rockies very prominent from the foothills, there in Golden. But we started in Copper Mountain, which is just sort of below Vail essentially, and is a great ski area. Yeah, I never get sick of seeing the mountains. I think Independence Pass just is a breathtaking place as well. I know we chatted a bit on top of that, but also very steeped in the cycling culture. USA Pro Challenge raced Independence many times when we had that race here in the Colorado Classic. So just some iconic and breathtaking scenery for sure.
And okay, that's confusing to me because Independence Pass is over 12,000 feet, right? And for you to say the word race is mind-blowing. Like, how in the heck are you, fighting elevation, but you're doing it as a race?
Yeah, it's a great question. Certainly, I have never raced it proper. I feel like surviving it probably is the right thing. But it is, you're right, 12,095 feet. It's the fourth highest paved road in the state.
Wow.
Second highest paved road to get across the Continental Divide. So it's a substantial effort. This year we started from Aspen and went up that direction, which is long, probably about a 20-mile climb, but so beautiful. And there's the, Colorado, if you don't like the weather, just, wait a couple hours. So I think we had a little bit of flurries as we were climbing up there, but for the most part, the weather was pretty great. So.
Yeah, I do think I saw all four seasons on my trip that week. Okay, so, here we are talking about Ride the Rockies. And so for people who don't know what Ride the Rockies is, it is a 6-day bicycle ride, and you go through all kinds of different mountain passes, and I think you just call them, do you call them passes or mountains, or how does that work?
I think we call them passes.
Yeah.
This year there was a lot. The route primarily went through a lot of the ski areas, which obviously have a lot of high alpine, a lot of time over 10,000 feet. But I think this year it was Fremont, Tennessee, Battle Mountain, Independence. We talked about Trout Creek, which was really beautiful as well, and probably not done that often. Hoosier Pass, Swan Mountain, and Loveland Pass. So lots of mountains this year, which probably makes it just a little bit more difficult this year than perhaps some previous years.
Mm-hmm. And I, like I mentioned before, I was part of the crew, so I was in a vehicle most days, but I did get the chance to ride day 5, which was getting to ride up to the top of Swan Mountain, which is probably the lowest mountain of each of the passes that riders had to go over. It was still, a nice day of climbing, but wow, the views. It was, I think it's called, is it Dillon Lake or Lake Dillon?
Yeah, Dillon Reservoir. Yeah, so you're exactly right. That Swan Mountain has such a great view of Dillon and the Silverthorne area. So definitely some awesome views.
Yeah. So for a lot of the people who listen, they are Ragbri riders, which is the 7-day bike ride across Iowa. And this ride is similar in that, it's a camping event and each day you're in a different community. This year, specifically, this ride was 436 miles and over 27,000 feet of climb. And that's if you didn't do the extra loop. So, what are your thoughts, Jason? What did you think of the route this year?
I mean, for me, it's such an iconic. You kind of hit a little bit of everything, which was really phenomenal. I recall Glenwood Canyon, which I've never been into before. Certainly have maybe rafted it a couple of times, but to sort of ride your bike into Glenwood from Copper was really spectacular. Mm-hmm. You're right up next to the Colorado River, and it's at high flow, so it's just noisy, and you're flying past it, and that was really beautiful. Then small towns like Basalt, which I haven't spent a lot of time, in before was neat. And you get sort of, big towns like Breckenridge, Salida, Buena Vista, so you really have a great mix of, some ski towns, some sort of hamlets like Basalt, kind of is outside of Aspen, Woody Creek area. Really, just a really great mix of bigger ski areas as well as just smaller towns, and it's great just to be able to see Colorado from the bike. I think that's probably my favorite part of it, because it does give you a different perspective than just driving your car. And a lot of people hike here as well, so that's a different perspective as well. But it's just great to do it from the bike, and it's for me it's rare that I get to spend 7-8 days on my bike in a row.
Yeah.
And so that's always, one of my favorite things as well. And it's also very safe. You mentioned, where do you ride in Denver? And, unfortunately, we have had, incidents and growing set of incidents where distracted riding is a real thing. And what's really nice with organized rides like Ride the Rockies is that you get the support from the Colorado State Patrol, you get support from the local sheriff and police department. So it feels much, safer than just riding by yourself, which I think also helps the comfort factor as well.
Yeah, I agree. And we do have to give a shout out to the Colorado State Patrol, because they were on it, man. Like, you get to the top of some of those passes and they were, waiting and ready to, keep motorists and cyclists separated. And also when I was on the trail biking on my day to Swan Mountain, there was a motorcycle on the bike trail, like one of the police officers, and I saw him at one of the rest stops and asked him, I'm like, I bet that was super fun to be riding your motorcycle on a bike path. And he goes, actually, it's terrifying. It is terrifying because the bridges are not meant for, lots and lots of weight. They're meant for cyclists and pedestrians.
Right.
So he was like, I'd kind of hold my breath when I would go over the bridges.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. But
yeah.
You're exactly right.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of highlights that I want to point out, and then maybe you have some as well. But not only was this bike ride, epic amounts of climb, day 1 and day 3 were both over 100 miles on the bike. And I think both days were over 4,000 feet of elevation gain. So what are your thoughts on those 2 days?
Well, they're long days for sure. Yeah, it's all about managing your effort, and we definitely had a little bit of wind factor, I would say, this year. But for the most part, we were lucky to have most of that at our backs for the big climbs, which does definitely help. There were some crosswinds in some sections, but that's pretty typical for for that area, just kind of this time of year as well. But there are long days. You just got to kind of manage your hydration, your effort. The good thing is there's plenty of aid stations, so that is super helpful to be able to get water and nutrition and food, and maybe even just get off the bike and stretch a bit. So that helps as well. Break it up. Yeah,
and I noticed a lot of comments about people saying it was a little bit warmer than it typically is in Colorado this time of year. Did you feel that way too?
Well, I think every year it seems like it's getting warmer here. Yeah, definitely. I think at one point Glenwood was 101 when I saw it, but it's better than the alternative. We've had a few years, and so I've ridden it maybe 11 times, 12 times, kind of over 3 decades, so not consecutively. And I know one year we had to get bussed around Trail Ridge Road, which is up in Estes Park, and get on buses and go all the way to Granby, kind of the long way, so back down the highway all the way back up into the mountains, because we had a snowstorm that closed Trail Ridge Road. And then a few years ago we had a snowstorm that we actually closed the road into Winter Park. So I guess I'd rather be 100 degrees on the bike than dealing with snow, but it's Colorado, so you don't like the weather. Just wait a bit. So.
Yeah. And I think it was either the top of Independence Pass or the top of Hoosier Pass that there were snow flurries when I was up there.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, pretty common. Yeah, 12,000 feet for sure.
Well, when you overall think of all the communities that we pass through, any favorites or maybe communities that you want to go back to that you recall?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of funny. I was reading Bill Plock's, email one morning, and I think it was the the official first day. And, we get into Glenwood Springs, and and his route description is take the elevator down. So that was the first time, I think, in Ride the Rockies history that an elevator was actually on the route description. So that was fun, being able to sort of go downtown Glenwood Springs, and, really just a lot of hospitality from that community. Basalt was another one. We had lunch at the Brick Pony, which, was kind of packed, but really some patient staff, and, everybody working really hard to feed a bunch of us. So that was definitely a lot of fun. So I just like kind of some of the smaller towns that you don't, probably spend a lot of time in.
Yeah. My favorite was Fair Play. And for the riders, I think all of the aid station and such was in a park. But I had the time to kind of walk around, and I believe that's loosely what the cartoon South Park is based on. I don't know if that's for sure, but there are lots of references to South Park, the show, in the town of Fairplay, and that was kind of fun.
Yeah, so South Park, you're just right, and South Park's actually a region of kind of Colorado. It's a basin essentially, and Fairplay is right on that edge. So you're definitely very, on South Park there. And I saw all those signs as well, which is fun to see.
Yeah.
Fairplay was great. I think I had a hamburger there that I recall being really, really tasty. So that was good.
I just recall, everyone was kind of hanging out in the park and getting smoothies and eating. And I saw Bill Pluck grab this huge speaker out of the back of his car, and then he had some music playing, and it just really lightened the mood. I could tell everyone was kind of like, yay, this is fun. I didn't see any dancing, but I think that was a pretty long day, so I wouldn't expect it.
Oh, it was a long day, and Fairplay is right below Hoosier, so I think everybody knew they had to go climb, up Hoosier Path to get to Breck. So
yeah,
I do recall everybody spending a little bit of time there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said you've done Ride the Rockies about 11 times. Do you think you'll do it again?
Definitely. Yeah. No, it's in my calendar every year until it's not. So
yeah, awesome. Well, and not only do you ride the Rockies, your company is also a partner. So tell us a little bit about Flexential and maybe the connection, with cycling and how you got to become a partner.
Sure. So Flexential is a IT services data center, network connected co-location and cloud services provider. And we have a long history in Colorado. The company Flexential was formed with the combination of two companies, one called BioWest and one called Peak 10. Peak 10 actually, interestingly enough, is named after Peak 10 in Breckenridge, but was headquartered in Charlotte, North Carolina. BioWest was headquartered in Denver, and we combined those two companies probably 5 years ago now, and came up with a new name called Flexential. So BioWest Flexential has been involved in the cycling world in Colorado probably for the last decade or so. Really, we started sponsoring USA Pro Challenge, back in the early days when that was forming, and have done a lot of great things with the Colorado Classic as well, which has turned into a women's only race and platform. So really have spent a lot of time just kind of thinking about diversity and cycling and equality and things like that. And then finally with Ride the Rockies, I think we're in our 8th year of sponsorship of Ride the Rockies, and for us it's a way to get back to the communities. Traditionally with the Denver Post Foundation, now it's Venture Endurance, but traditionally there's been a lot of nonprofits sort of give back in the communities, which I'm excited to work with Venture Endurance on that program going forward. So I think it's an important part of this. But yeah, for us, it's about giving back to Colorado, giving back to the community, and it's also a way to bring some of our partners and key customers together and spend some quality time kind of with them, away from the office. So
yeah, and it was very cool to see all of you guys together, especially at the end of the day. You had like tent set up and hospitality, and just it was always like a buzzing place. Like you could tell there was a lot of people who knew each other, and maybe see each other only once a year, or maybe you guys are friends all the time. But it was fun to watch.
No, I think for a lot of us, it's we're all all busy. We're traveling a lot. So really it's almost a reunion of sorts when you can bring everybody together. And we've been very lucky to have, some returned guests, that have done it a couple of years. So they kind of understand the program and understand sort of logistics and make it easy kind of for people that might be new to this and kind of help them along. So that's great as well. But yeah, this year we had riders from New York, riders from California, riders from Colorado. So really a nice mix of people for sure.
Yeah. And, to think about your, I guess, regular life or office life, you're probably busy, 12 hours a day. And even though, this is almost 30,000 feet of climbing, suffering, riding your bicycle in heat and snow, it's probably considered a vacation for you, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, the good thing is, or the bad thing perhaps, is that you can't do a lot else other than ride your bike, eat, and figure out where your stuff is, and try to find your hotel or your campsite. So you're pretty focused. I think in previous years tried to do a little work along the way, and it's too hard to do that. So
right.
I think you're pretty focused, and like I said, it's a rare event to be able to ride your bike 6 or 7 days in a row, on the road 3 or 4 or 5 hours a day. So it's really pretty spectacular.
I completely agree. And besides Ride the Rockies, are there any other epic rides that you've participated in that you want to mention?
Well, I certainly have done RAGBRAI, and hope to get back out there this year. And so that's, it's quite different than Ride the Rockies.
Yes,
but
for sure.
I think we're one of the things we're trying to do with Ride the Rockies is maybe bring a little bit of the RAGBRAI spirit kind of into it. So when you mentioned the sort of Finnish towns and the support that Primal Wear provides us really is part of that hospitality to really bring our team together and our friends together and hang out a bit, which is great. The triple, when you do Ride the Rockies, you kind of come back as a superhuman a bit, and because you get, like I said, you get so many miles on the bike, and traditionally the triple bypass used to be in July. Now it's shifted to August, so now you have to just sort of keep your fitness going for a little bit longer. But triple bypass is a great ride. Copper Triangle is always great, but yeah, I just like really riding in Colorado. We've got some great events and great partners that put on just some really, really fun stuff.
I think, there's always different events that I see friends or people I know on social media that are based out of Colorado. I know Leadville is coming up, and that's a pretty epic, I think more of a single track than a road bike, but it's never ending, the different events that happen in Colorado.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, almost every weekend there's probably something going on, which is great.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, before we say goodbye, is there anything that you want to plug as far as, nonprofits or your company or just anything?
I would just say if you haven't done Ride the Rockies, haven't spent some time in Colorado, I think it's just a great way. I think this year, if I remember the stats right, about a third of our riders came outside the state, which is phenomenal. So come check it out. We're gonna, I'm just excited with the partnership with Venture Endurance to make this better and better. It's really a iconic Colorado asset, and making sure it's taken care of and has the support, broad support from not just companies like Flexential, but the communities that we're in, and really trying to pay attention to our impact in those communities, both positive and negative, and really try to help move it forward.
Definitely. And I mentioned this before we started talking, but this event's been around for over 30 years. And, the hope is that it just continues and keeps getting better.
Absolutely.
Jason, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and telling us about your experience with Ride the Rockies. And I will be looking for you on RAGBRAI.
Sounds good, Murph. Thank you very much.
Well, listeners, that's it for this week. Email me at murphologypodcast@gmail.com if you have a topic or the name of a cyclist you find interesting. Support my podcast at patreon.com/murphology and visit both my Facebook and Instagram pages for daily entertainment. Also, a quick shout out to Simmons Electric for sponsoring this episode. I have more great episodes in the pipeline, so I hope you continue to be a Murphology podcast listener. Thank you.